All we do is go to pool parties, hit big shots, win natties, and tie school records.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And hey, if you're a new customer, bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Where we get started on a signature day of UCLA action, right? The women in action, number one in the country, big news there. Water polo takes down SCU for the national championship, 124th, the 124th in program history, I think pretty much to cap 2024. And then the first signature victory of the season for the UCLA Bruins, coming in their closest game of the year so far and their first true road test of the game, first true road game of the season. And UCLA goes to number 12 Oregon and takes them down. Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, was on pace to be the highest ranked Big Ten team if they had gotten out of that game with a win, stole that one at the buzzer like they've done many times, whether it was in the Players Era Festival or like they did against Portland in early November. All right. So I'm still trying to figure out if Oregon's legit or not, but they've beaten some really good teams. They survived some scares against a team like Portland, who I've seen, and I just don't really know about that. But for UCLA, in their first true road victory of the year, again, the rankings early, UCLA was up 10, come back, and all of a sudden they're up 10. Oregon comes back and takes a halftime lead. I'm just like, what? What's going on? And then this game was just back and forth. I think UCLA could have gotten away with winning this game by 8, but Oregon went on a 13-3 spurt in the last 3.5 minutes, despite the Bruins getting some calls in the review on the block shot, which I disagree with Don McClain. I thought that ball was going still straight up. It didn't look like it was coming down. So as much as I like to agree with Don McClain on quite a few things or listen to his basketball knowledge and wisdom, I thought the announcers were really far off when it came to that block by Bilodeau. Now, on the foul on Sky Clark driving to the hoop late in the game, it looked like there was a knee from Biddle. Who knows? Either way, the bank is open for Dylan Andrews. They put themselves in an awkward spot, 6.5 seconds. They're working slow in the half court. Andrews falls down and then throws up a heave of a three, a prayer, if you will, and he banks it in as it looks like his fingertips were literally smacking 5 with Nate Biddle's hands as he followed through in his shot. I was like, oh no, this doesn't look off. Only the bank, and it banked in, right? Because he had to make something out of nothing. And UCLA comes away with one of their strongest performances of the year. And now we look at that New Mexico game, right? And is New Mexico really good? They've lost, I think, once or twice since then. But maybe it was the matchup, right? UCLA played terribly, and New Mexico has size all around the perimeter that Oregon does not. Because what did Oregon try to do in this game? They, as I said before in the little pregame segment I mentioned, Nate Biddle, they were going to feed their 7-footer because UCLA does have a 7-3 guy. They do have a defensive player of the year in the post like William Kyle, but Cronin just doesn't trust them enough yet to play them more than a combined 16 minutes between his two big men in the post. So Oregon, their game plan was to strictly give Biddle the ball. Say, score it. He even hit a couple threes, 22-10, 4 assists, in 34 minutes for the Oregon big man who does just about everything for them so far this year. And I thought, if that's what they're going to do, if UCLA can withstand the pressure in the post, maybe they could win. They got out rebounded by 10. Yet, how do UCLA win this game? Well, I said for UCLA to win this game, they're going to have to shoot the 3 ball well. And not only did they shoot it well, they shot it extremely well. 12 threes, better than 50% from downtown, 45% from the game. And I'm wondering how UCLA is able to score without Eric Daly down the floor in the later stages of the game. I was confused why UCLA did not have Eric Daly Jr., the leading scorer of this game, 19 points, 7 of 8 shooting, was tied for the team lead in rebounds in 23 minutes. Wasn't in any foul trouble other than just his one technical he picked up after a step-back triple that was baller early in the game. I'm not sure why Cronin went away from him, especially when Oregon went on a run. It's not like UCLA was stopping them. It's not like they're grabbing rebounds. Nobody on this team can truly be a great individual rebounder, right? They're not playing Kyle long enough, and he hasn't proven that on the floor yet. Mara isn't strong enough to box out as much to get rebounds against a stronger 7-footer like Biddle. I was really confused as to why Daly did not play for a lot of that last few minutes when Oregon went on a run. Daly wasn't on the floor other than the last play of the game, and the Bruins got lucky because Andrews made a play when he slipped and fell and banked one in with 0.4 seconds left. The Bruins escaped, and they did a lot to shoot themselves in the foot, right? There was a 7-point lead where they fouled Biddle when the shot clock was ending, could not get the free throw miss on the front end of a 1-and-1 that led to a wide-open Oregon 3. UCLA had Bilodeau rising for a slam. He got stripped by a much smaller defender on the rise to put them up by 6. UCLA was up 2 at the ball, and then next thing you know, they couldn't score, leading to a terrible possession after an Andrews pass got deflected up, leading to a wide-open Shellstad 3. Like, what are you doing? Cronin, what? He went out there and said, we like to go to the beach and party. I don't really know. He's probably so excited for Andrews and also very pissed off that his team could not get a defensive stop down the stretch. UCLA didn't guard the 3 that well. Oregon shot over 40%. Oregon shot better than 40. UCLA gave up a better field goal percentage, gave up 9 threes, more free throws. But the difference in this game was UCLA was able to hit a few more threes, and they forced more Oregon turnovers into a couple more points, right? It wasn't like it was 15 to 16 turnovers, which is what I think is a lot. Oregon turned it over 13 times, but this year's UCLA team has been excellent at converting those into points. And I think the number you want to look into is 1 point per turnover is a pretty good ratio. UCLA 16 points off 13 turnovers. They only had 9 turnovers overall in the game, and Oregon scored 13 points off those. And in a game that's this tight on the road, back and forth, UCLA did the small marginal things well in the right moments and held on for dear life. I hope they get much better at holding on to leads, because Big Ten life is not going to be easy. If you saw the amount of teams that have gone down this week alone, then you would be surprised to say, wait a minute, who are the Big Ten leaders right now after the opening week of the early December games? Well, it's Michigan, okay, coaching change. Michigan State, Tom Izzo's always there. And UCLA, those are your top 3 2-0 teams. All right, those are your 2-0 teams as of this recording. Look at the Big Ten site that is not updated because of UCLA's win. Those are your three teams right now. And I would beg that UCLA is probably the best out of those 3 teams. It is huge because I think UCLA playing Oregon twice, Washington twice, and USC twice. Oregon, that game, and UCLA is going to be very tough because they rarely sweep Oregon whenever Dayton Altman has been coach. It is huge. You win those games, you have a leg up over all the other Big Ten teams that went on the road and lost, right? I think Purdue went to Penn State and lost. Wisconsin's gone on the road and lost. All the top teams in the Big Ten went away from home or lost at home, right? The only team that hasn't played a Big Ten game was Indiana, right? They didn't play a game, at least not at this recording. Rutgers, an expected preseason darling, didn't win a game early. You had Penn State, who I remember talking to Zach Sako, said Penn State is going to be sneaky good. They went out and got a big win against Purdue. But the story is UCLA, with all their other non-conference games looking weaker by the moment, right? Gonzaga blew a big lead to Kentucky last night, so they have 2 losses, although they're going to be a very tough team to beat. You've got North Carolina, who's got 4 losses, all against good teams, but that's 4 early losses. And even though UCLA has to travel across the country for a non-conference game in late December, that's going to hurt UCLA's resume if they lose that game. Arizona fell out of the top 25. All tough games, all extremely top-tier games for UCLA, none of them in Pauley Pavilion. But this is huge because Oregon had beaten Alabama. They'd beaten some good teams, almost lost to a bad team, but beat some good teams on a neutral floor. And UCLA was the first team to go do it and do it on the road. All right, maybe it's going to get forgotten. It was just about prime time on a Sunday night. Maybe you're stuck watching some NFL or you care more about that. Maybe the Oregon fans are still partying after winning their first Big Ten championship. Good luck. Go solid to them. But this is a huge game come the rest of the season, a defining moment for this UCLA team that proved they can go win a big game. And maybe the New Mexico game is more matchup based than it was. Yes, obviously 20 plus turnovers. You're never going to win a game away from home when you turn it over 20 plus times. But when a team is 6'9" across the board, almost 1 through 5, UCLA just can't compete with that. And this game is also an indication that Cronin talked about preseason his team's going to struggle at the 5 spot, and they have. Now, they're getting production out of Daly. They're getting production out of Bilodeau, although he had a slow game in a mismatch where he's much shorter than Biddle. That's not a matchup he's going to be successful in unless he's getting open jumpers consistently. UCLA will struggle to guard the 5s. And I think it's a good year for UCLA to join the Big Ten, because if Purdue had Zach Edey, UCLA would have been gobbled up and feasted on and spit out if they had that type of 7-footer to deal with, which I don't think so. Obviously, there's a lot of Big Ten games left to go, and all the teams that have a little bit of size, that is how they're going to attack UCLA. But the Bruins are good enough defensively, and this year, they finally proved it despite a woeful start to the season from 3. 32% is a low mark for what I think this team can shoot, and they proved it today. They had, 7 different players make a 3. 7 different UCLA players hit a 3, and 4 of them shot 50% or better while making multiple 3s. All right? Not a single UCLA player went 1 for 4 from downtown. They all shot efficiently. They all did enough. And despite the lack of free throws, the Bruins got a huge dub. And I think kind of proved to themselves, because I'm very confident that they're going to jump back into the top 25. You could argue into the top 20, maybe top 15. Maybe that's a big jump. But Oregon went from unranked to top 12 because of their players' Era Festival run. UCLA just did what they needed to do. Defense, enough. 3-point shooting, withstand the Biddle pressure in the paint, 22 and 10 on 8 of 13 shooting. And nobody in Oregon went off. Shelstad had a decent shooting night from 3, but he didn't shoot it a lot. And maybe next time Oregon's going to be like, hey, let's not have Barthélemy go 5 of 14 from the floor. Let's let our starting Pac-12 all freshmen from a year ago get some more shots while mixing in with Biddle. I think Altman might tell his guards to shoot it a little more against UCLA, while also feeding Biddle when the teams meet again later in the season in Pauley Pavilion. Either way, huge win for UCLA. You can see the depth of this game. Only 2 Bruins played over 30 minutes, and that included Bilodeau for 35 and Dylan Andrews with 31 minutes, including the game-winning dagger off the glass. The Bruins are lucky to escape that with a win. Now, they should have won it and not blown it and not needed a buzzer beater. Cronin is going to be equally excited because the Bruins played well enough to win this game that did not come down to the final buzzer. It was good enough of a game that it did, but the Bruins should have not let it come down to Dylan Andrews having to get a buzzer-beating 3. And I think I have to go back and see how many game winners he has, but the amount of big buckets late in games Dylan Andrews has been able to create and make in some impossible situations, they're starting to add up now in his 3rd year for UCLA. And I think, the 3 he missed against Arizona in the Pac-12 tournament championship game when he was wide open, and you compare it to that shot, obviously circumstances a little different, pressure a little different, but he's starting to become a very clutch player that Cronin, with all these guys with the ball in his hands, is going to give it to Andrews, at least initially. Even though he slipped and fell and the play was probably going to be a kick out or a pass somewhere, a drive and kick, he made the play, and I'm not sure how he did it. Huge win for the Bruins. Absolutely huge. And let's not forget to mention the UCLA women on the road in Washington only won by double figures, as the other teams in the top 5, top 10 are falling in women's college basketball. The Bruins, of course, have the biggest win of the year, dominating South Carolina on the women's side. And we have to give our shout outs to Corey Close, who tied Billy Moore for the most wins in program history, 296. So she is about to break the program record for wins. She is close. She has tied it. Corey Close. Boom, bad pun. And then let's give the shout out to the UCLA men's water polo team. 11-8 the final in the NCAA championship of men's water polo here in the fall heading into winter. I believe the score was 11-8. They beat USC. They avenged last year's title match loss. It wasn't to USC though, but they won it this year. 124 championships this overall for the university as they try to creep ever so closer to Stanford for the overall lead. And a great job to end 2024 with 124. So all that and more, UCLA champs, close to breaking records, and a signature win over a basic top 10 team here on a Sunday night. 2-0 in Big Ten play, and it's only going to get more exciting here. Tell me your thoughts, comments, and more. We'll dissect it a little more throughout the week, what it means for UCLA as they go back into non-conference throughout the rest of December until they go play Nebraska in early January. But until then, like, comment, subscribe here on Locked On UCLA. But if you saw UCLA as the underdog winning this game, maybe you should have gone to FanDuel. As a new customer, you bet $5 and you can win $150 if you win that first $5 bet as a new customer. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Return, get all the action on the NFL, more college basketball. All you got to do is go to FanDuel. A $5 bet as a new customer, win it, and you get $150 in bonus bets on FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel. And now it's time for our 8 clap, baby. Because, all right, get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, all right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. Big win, UCLA winning 73-71 over Oregon. All right, I got to go text Spencer McLaughlin. Suck it. Don't care about your football chips. Suck it. Let's go, Bruins. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.